I've been involved in whistleblowing for the last 40, 50 years, actually. You could say that I'm a second generation whistleblower.
Huh.
The first forensic investigation of my lifetime began at age 17 when I was investigating the murder of my father by Idi Amin, the president of Uganda. He disappeared when I was 17 and was involved with the CIA investigating. He was investigating a brutal murder of 500 Ugandan army soldiers in 1971, and he blew the whistle on Amin, and it was reported in the Newsweek magazine and throughout the country because he and another man, Nicholas Stroh, the heir to the Stroh Brewery, which many of your listeners may have heard of Stroh's beer, the two of them disappeared.
What year was that they disappeared, Ted?
1971.
All right, so everything happened in 71.
Since they disappeared, a commission of inquiry was held. The United States government demanded answers, and the Ugandan government said they knew nothing about it. But there was a commission of inquiry held, and in the end, the Ugandan government paid reparations to me and my brother for the murder, what was determined to be the murder of our father at that time. But his body was never found, never recovered. So I went back to Uganda in 1997 with the help of the CIA and State Department and the Uganda government, and I was able to meet the men who murdered him, who were in prison, and dig for his body.
So how were you able to meet the men that murdered him? There was a murder investigation, but under Idi Amin, you didn't know who murdered your dad. You just assumed he was murdered. You had no real information, correct?
Well, there was a commission of inquiry which issued a report within a year after my father disappeared. And the judge, a British judge who wrote the report, actually had to flee the country in the trunk of the American ambassador's car before he released his report, because the report concluded that certain people were likely to have been involved in the murder. That's as far as he was willing to go. So in 1972, a year after my father disappeared, there was a report naming people who were likely involved in the murder. And I was able to meet those people in 1997.
When did those people go to jail? If in 72, their name. So in 72, someone from the British government writes a report, but that report is so dangerous, he has to flee in the trunk of the ambassador's car. Now, did Idi Amin's government put him in prison, put those fellas in prison, or how did they end up in prison?
No, they were put in prison years later, like around 1980, after Amin had gone.
Well, that's my point. So
yeah, they continued to kill people. These same people continued to kill other people. So eventually, the new government tried them for murder.
So they were operatives of Idi Amin. Why did they your dad was investigating Idi Amin and this massacre of these 500 people, and then because of doing the investigation, he himself was killed, I guess, by Idi Amin's government.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then Idi Amin is deposed, and after he's deposed, then they put these fellas in jail.
Yes.
Oh, all right. And then you worked with the new government, because there was that movie, Last King of Scotland, and that described that was a famous movie. It was a great movie, and that talked about Idi Amin. Now, your dad worked for the CIA or just with the CIA, or is that something you don't talk about much?
Well, let's say he at least worked with the CIA.
And your dad had a partner, correct?
Yes.
And they both were killed at the same time?
Yes.
All right. And then they never gave you any information, or you never were able to recover your dad's body, anything like that, correct?
Correct. But I actually just received a letter last week from the CIA telling me that the documents related to my father's murder will be released to me November 2026.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes.
Now, why is that? Is there a time? Did it time out? Was there a time to the sealing of the documents, and that's now run out? Or did someone make a decision that this is the time has come for this information to come to light?
Well, I did a public records request a year ago, and then they just responded last week saying they estimate that they will get me the documents in November 2026. But after a certain period of time, 50 years or so, classified documents become declassified, and so more information is available. So let's just say with the passage of time and with stifling bureaucracy, I will finally be getting some documents.
So you have waited over 50 years for these documents. You
Yes.
started your investigation at age 17.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I mean, 50 years is crazy time to wait. I mean, it must be what's going through your head, waiting for this.
Well, I've gotten a lot of information forensically over the years, and so I just feel, an obligation to my father to find out all that I can. But I've learned a lot over the last 50 years. I learned a lot going back to Uganda in 1997. And so it's just, to me, something that I have an obligation as his son to keep asking questions and to go as far as I can.
Take it as far as you can. Now, you wrote a book.
Yes.
You want to tell us about your book?
Yeah, I wrote a book called Buried Beneath the Tree in Africa, which is the journey to investigate my father's murder. And that came out last year, was in the New York Post, and was a top new release at Amazon in February of last year. And that tells the story. And in the beginning of the book, the president of Uganda wrote a preface to the book saying he would reopen the investigation this year. Whether he does that or not, we'll see. But he wrote a nice foreword to the book as well.